The colonial time period is a time heavily defined by the Puritan Pilgrims of America. Since so much emphasis was placed on religion, there are little to no colonial works that did not pertain to such. Common conventions of writers of the time include the idea of divine providence. This is the idea that everything rests in the hands of God. Coinciding with divine providence is the concept that all mankind has original sin, and salvation can only be attained by rigorous worship. Due to the almost brainwashed concept of worship, a paranoia of sin formed. Authors of the time consequently wrote almost wholly in nonfiction. They believed fiction was a sin and therefore avoided it. Also, Puritans came from England. Because of this, English society norms were often incorporated into colonial works. Both religion and English principles combined to make a commonality of journals, letters, sermons, and histories. Due to this obsession with avowed religion and avoiding sin, the concept of plain style is used to describe the simplicity that colonial authors were notorious for. Concrete words were used, and abstract concepts were frowned upon. In order to explain why Puritans were so dedicated in their ways, one must look at their origins. Puritanism stems from Calvinist ideas. Calvinism states that only an elect few will make it into heaven. Puritans took this and created the belief that one could achieve salvation through religious dedication and hard work for the Puritan community. Common authors of the time include Anne Bradstreet. Anne was the first American author to publish a book of poems. Instead of abstract themes like most of modern poetry, Bradstreet's works always concluded in a strongly pious meaning. She also incorporated imagery, love theme, and many metaphysical concepts. A second example of a colonial author is found in Jonathan Edwards. Edwards was one of the most definitive writers of sermons in the entire period. He used aggressiveness and fear tactics to produce mass hysteria throughout the audiences he preached to. His firm conviction to Puritan culture alongside his fierce nature created a man who is infamous for striking the fear of God into the hearts of listeners. Edwards preached perhaps his most famous work, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, and used his superb oratory skills to convince the audience to repent. Colonial literature compares to other times in American literature by coming off as extremely reverent to God. It affected the other periods by setting up a sort of fictional limitation for works of literature. In the Romantic period, this is seen in The Devil and Tom Walker. The author feels the need to validate his story instead of simply creating baseless fiction. Today, this limitation is seen through the literary term of ethos. Previous eras of literature in Europe ultimately influenced Puritan ways. Their division from the Church of England and their deadly voyages to the New World led their devout ways and paranoia of sin. Colonial literature sets up the basis for all American literature and still affects the world today.